The blade stopped 3 inches from my throat. My husband's hand gripped the assassin's wrist, crushing bone with a sound like snapping branches. The Krivari warrior, elite guard of my father's kingdom, screamed. Then his voice cut off as Marcus twisted, and the body dropped at my feet. "How many?" Marcus asked, his voice unchanged, like he'd just asked about dinner. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't reconcile the man who'd held me gently last night with the creature who'd just killed a trained assassin in 2 seconds. "Elira." His green eyes locked on mine. "How many did your father send?" "I don't know what you're talking about." He stepped over the corpse. "You're a terrible liar. Always have been." Your left eye twitches. My hand flew to my face. "Marcus. I swear. I didn't know he would. 12 more in the forest. 4 on the North Road. 3 inside the house." He said it casually, like counting sheep. "They've been watching us for 3 days. I was hoping your father would reconsider." The words hit me like ice water. "You knew?" Of course I knew. He walked to the window, his movements fluid, predatory, nothing like the gentle scholar I'd married 6 months ago. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice an entire assassination squad?" I'd married Marcus to stop a war. My people, the Krivari, had been expanding into human territory for decades. Tensions had reached breaking point. Then Marcus appeared at my father's court with a proposal. Marry him, and he'd ensure the humans withdrew from our disputed lands. Peace through union. My father had laughed. But the Human Council had endorsed it. I'd agreed, because I was tired of watching young soldiers die. The wedding had been small, quiet. Marcus had been kind, patient, respectful. He'd never raised his voice, never showed anger. He'd read books by the fire and made me laugh with stories about his childhood in the human capital. I'd started to think I could love him. Now, a dead Krivari lay bleeding on our floor, and my husband was something else entirely. "The ones inside the house," I said slowly. "Where?" "Basement. Attic. One in the spare bedroom." He turned back to me, and in the lamplight, I saw something in his eyes that made my blood freeze. "Would you like me to deal with them? Or shall we have tea first? This isn't funny." "No. It's really not." He moved faster than I could track, and suddenly he was right in front of me, his hand cupping my face with the same gentleness he'd shown every night. "Your father is making a mistake, Elira. I've tried diplomacy. I've tried patience. I've tried showing the Krivari that humans want peace. By killing his soldiers? By not killing his armies when I could have." His thumb brushed my cheek. "Do you know why the Human Council agreed to this marriage? Not for peace. They wanted to buy time. Time for me to finish what I started 20 years ago." "What you started?" He smiled, and it was sad, ancient, wrong on his young face. "I've been at war with your people since I was 16. Personally. Just me. I've destroyed 47 Krivari military outposts, collapsed 3 major supply lines, eliminated 238 officers." He paused. I stopped counting the regular soldiers at 5,000. My legs gave out. He caught me, lowering me, gently, into a chair. "That's impossible," I whispered. "One man can't. One man can't." He knelt before me, still so careful, so tender. "But I'm not exactly a man, Elira. Not anymore. Not for a very long time." The door exploded inward. 3 Krivari warriors burst through, weapons drawn. Marcus didn't even look at them. He kept his eyes on mine as he moved. I saw his hand blur, heard the wet sounds, smelled copper and death. When he returned to kneeling before me, 3 more bodies decorated our home. "What are you?" I managed. "I'm what happens when a war takes everything from someone and they refuse to die." He took my hand. "I'm what happens when grief and rage and magic twist together in ways they shouldn't. I'm the thing your father was warned about when he crossed the Ansel River 20 years ago and burned a human village called Thornwood." My breath caught. I knew that name. Every Krivari knew it. The massacre at Thornwood had been celebrated as a great victory. Over 300 humans killed in a single night. That was your home, I said. That was my home. My wife, my daughter, my parents, my sister, and her children. His voice remained steady, but his hand trembled slightly. I died that night, Illyra, but something wouldn't let me stay dead. Something pulled me back, made me into this. Thunder cracked outside. No, not thunder. Explosions. The squad on the North Road just tried to blow up the bridge, Marcus said. They failed. How can you possibly know that? He tapped his temple. I can feel them. Every soldier within 3 miles. Their heartbeats. Their positions. Their fear. He stood, looking toward the window. Your father brought 200 warriors. He's really committed to this assassination. Marcus, please. If you slaughter them all, there'll be no chance for peace. And there never was a chance, Illyra. Your father agreed to this marriage to get close to me, to map out where I live, how I defend myself, what my vulnerabilities are. He glanced at me. He miscalculated. I don't have vulnerabilities. I have you. Me? You're the only thing I've cared about in 20 years. The only reason I haven't walked into the Krivari capital and torn it down stone by stone. He crossed to a trunk in the corner, opened it. Inside were weapons. Not human weapons. Not Krivari weapons. Things that hummed with power, that made the air shimmer. I thought maybe, if I could love again, I could let go of the hate. I thought maybe you could save me from what I've become. And now, he lifted a sword that seemed made of crystallized midnight. Now your father has forced my hand. The Krivari Empire will fall tonight. The only question is whether you stand with your people or with me. I stood frozen as Marcus strapped weapons across his body. Each one pulsed with an energy that made my skin crawl. These weren't forged by human or Krivari smiths. These were something older, darker, pulled from places the world had forgotten. You can't expect me to choose right now, I said. I don't expect anything. He checked the edge of the midnight sword. But you need to decide where you'll be safest. Here, you're in the center of a battlefield. The Krivari will assume you're compromised. If you run to them, they might believe you were an innocent victim. If you stay with me, well, he finally looked at me. You'll see exactly who you married. The floor beneath us shuddered. More explosions. Closer now. They're getting desperate, Marcus observed. They brought mages. 3 of them. Not bad casters. But they're using fire magic in a wooden forest. Tactical error. How are you sensing all this? Practice. Pain. Time. He moved to the fireplace. Pressing a stone. A hidden panel opened, revealing a staircase leading down into darkness. There's a tunnel. Follows the river for 3 miles. Emerges near the human settlement of Westbrook. You'll be safe there. Tell them Marcus sent you. I'm not running. Illyra, I said I'm not running. I surprised myself with the firmness in my voice. You think I'm going to abandon you to face 200 warriors alone? Even if you are whatever you've become, I'm not a coward. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. Or hope. I need you to understand what you're choosing, he said quietly. Once I start, I can't stop. I won't stop. The Krivari came here to kill you, to kill me, to spark a war they think they can win. They're wrong. When I'm done tonight, the Krivari Empire will remember why humans fear the dark. The windows shattered inward. Arrows whistled through. Dozens of them. Marcus moved like smoke, the midnight sword singing as it cut arrows from the air. Not some. Not most. All of them. The arrows fell in pieces around us, and he hadn't broken stride. Impressive, I heard myself say. That was nothing. He gestured. and the air itself seemed to solidify into a barrier across the broken windows. The arrows were a distraction. The real attack is coming through the A. Romberman. Romberman. A. Romberman. The floor exploded upward. Krivari warriors erupted from below, must have tunneled under the house. 6 of them, covered in dirt and determination. They saw me. Hesitated for just a second. Marcus didn't hesitate. The midnight sword, carved through armor. Like paper, his left hand made a gesture. And one warrior simply folded in on himself, crushed by invisible force. Another tried to grab me as a hostage. Marcus caught his arm, and there was a wet crack as every bone shattered at once. It was over in 5 seconds. 6 bodies. 6 lives. Soldiers who'd trained for years. Who had families waiting for them. "I'm sorry you have to see this," Marcus said. And he actually sounded sorry. "They were trying to kill us." "Yes. And 190 more are about to try the same thing." He pulled me close, his lips brushing my forehead. Last chance. The tunnel. Westbrook. Safety. I grabbed one of the weapons from his trunk, a dagger that felt warm in my hand, almost alive. "Show me how this works." He stared at me. Then, slowly, he smiled. The first real smile I'd seen since the first assassin died. Pointed at what you want dead. Will it to cut. It'll do the rest. He took my other hand. "Stay behind me. No matter what. If you see an opening to run, take it. Promise me." "I promise to stay alive," I said. "That's the best I can do." The walls exploded. All of them. Simultaneously. The house came apart like paper, and suddenly we were standing in ruins under the night sky, surrounded by Krivari warriors in formation. Mages stood in the back, hands glowing with spellwork. Archers lined the trees. A full assault force, coordinated and deadly. Princess Illyra, called Commander Thane, my father's right hand. "Step away from the human. You're safe now." "I'm exactly where I want to be," I called back. Thane's face hardened. "Then you've chosen treason. His Majesty will be disappointed." Quote, "His Majesty sent assassins to murder his own daughter," I shot back. "I'm pretty disappointed too." Marcus squeezed my hand once, then released it. He stepped forward. The midnight sword held loosely at his side. 200 warriors, he said, his voice carrying across the clearing. 3 mages, 40 archers, decent tactical deployment. "Thane, your best work yet." "You won't walk away from this, Marcus," Thane replied. "Surrender now, and we'll make it quick." "I'm not planning to walk away," Marcus said. "I'm planning to walk through you." He moved. One moment he was beside me. The next, he was among them. The midnight sword became a blur of darkness. Krivari warriors fell like wheat before a scythe. He was impossibly fast, impossibly precise. Every strike killed. Every movement flowed into the next. He was a massacre, given form. The mages launched their spells. Fire, ice, lightning. The elements themselves bent to their will and screamed toward Marcus. He didn't dodge. He gestured with his free hand, and the spells simply stopped, hanging in the air like frozen butterflies. Then with a flick of his wrist, he sent them back. The mage's own fire consumed them. Their screams were brief. Arrows filled the air, a deadly rain. Marcus spun. The midnight sword creating a sphere of cutting force around him. The arrows disintegrated. He pointed at the tree line, made a pulling motion. 3 archers flew from concealment, drawn by invisible hands. They hit the ground, hard enough to break bones. "Anyone else?" Marcus called. The remaining warriors charged as one. It should have been overwhelming. It was just more dying. Marcus moved through them like death itself. Untouchable. Unstoppable. Warriors tried to flank him, to surround him. He killed them faster than they could coordinate. Someone tried to use a net. He tore through it. Someone tried magical bindings. He shrugged them off like spiderwebs. I watched, horrified and fascinated. This wasn't just skill. This wasn't just power. This was something that had spent 20 years perfecting the art of killing Krivari soldiers. Every move was efficient. Every strike was certain. There was no hesitation, no mercy, no pause. And through it all, he kept himself between me and every threat. Even while slaughtering his way through an army, he protected me. In 10 minutes, it was over. 200 warriors reduced to bodies and blood. The clearing was silent, except for the wind and distant fire, where the mage's spells had gone wild. Marcus stood in the center of the carnage, not even breathing hard. The midnight sword dripped with blood that seemed to evaporate in the moonlight. "This is what I am," he said, turning to face me. "This is what 20 years of war and magic and loss created. Do you understand now? This is what your father unleashed when he burned Thornwood." I looked at the bodies, at the devastation, at the man I'd married who was so much more and so much less than a man. "I understand," I said slowly, "that my father just made a terrible mistake." Marcus nodded. "He declared war on a weapon he doesn't understand, and now that weapon is going to finish what he started." "What do you mean?" He sheathed the midnight sword. "I mean, we're going to the Krivari capital. I mean, I'm going to show your father exactly what he created. I mean, the empire that murdered my family is going to fall." "Marcus, there are thousands of soldiers there. Hundreds of mages. Defensive fortifications that have stood for 500 years. I know." He held out his hand to me. "That's why I'll need about 2 hours." We moved through the forest like ghosts, Marcus leading the way with absolute certainty. He didn't use paths or roads. He cut straight through the wilderness, as if following invisible lines only he could see. "How far to the capital?" I asked, struggling to keep pace. "At normal speed, 4 days. At my speed, we'll be there by dawn." He glanced back. "Can you run?" "I'll manage." He stopped, turned fully to face me. "I'm serious. Alira, if you're coming with me, you need to keep up. What you saw at the house was restrained. What I'm about to do in the capital, there's no preparation for that. It'll be worse. Much worse. Why bring me at all? Because you're the only thing stopping me from burning the entire city to ashes." His jaw tightened. "You're my anchor. The one thing that reminds me, I used to be human. If I leave you behind, I might not remember to stop." The weight of that settled on my shoulders. I'd become the conscience of a monster. "Then we'd better hurry," I said. He moved behind me, and I felt his hands on my waist. "Trust me?" Before I could answer, the world lurched. Wind screamed past my face. Trees blurred into streaks. Marcus was carrying me, moving at speeds that should have torn us apart. The forest became a tunnel of shadow and moonlight. My stomach dropped. My head spun. But his grip was absolutely secure. We burst from the forest onto a ridge overlooking the Krivari heartland. Far below, the capital city of Carnithia sprawled across the valley, its lights twinkling like fallen stars. Even from this distance, I could see the palace at its heart, my childhood home, the seat of power that had ruled this region for centuries. Marcus set me down gently. "Beautiful, isn't it?" "It's home," I said quietly. "It was mine too, once. Before your people taught me that homes are temporary and family is fragile." He stared at the city with an expression I couldn't read. "Do you know what I've been doing for 20 years, Alira? Not just killing soldiers. I've been studying, learning, preparing for this exact night." "Preparing how?" "The Krivari Empire has 7 major military installations, 12 fortress cities, 43 command centers. I've mapped every one, learned their strengths, their weaknesses, their command structures." He pointed at the capital. "Carnithia is the head of the snake. Cut it off, the empire collapses. There are civilians down there, thousands of them. Innocent people. I know." His voice was soft. "That's why you're here. To keep me honest. to make sure I remember the difference between soldiers and children. We started down the ridge. Marcus moved normally now, matching my pace, his hand occasionally steadying me on the steep descent. "Tell me about her," I said. "Your daughter." He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, Sarah. She was 6. Liked to catch butterflies. Would bring them to show me, cupped in her tiny hands, so careful not to hurt them. His voice cracked slightly. "Your father's soldiers didn't show her the same care. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back. Sorry doesn't undo 20 years of grief." He looked at me. "But you make me think maybe something good can still exist. Maybe I don't have to be this forever." We reached the valley floor as false dawn lightened the sky. The city walls loomed ahead, 30 feet of stone and magic-reinforced mortar. Guard towers dotted the perimeter, each one manned by watchful soldiers. "They'll see us coming," I said. "No, they won't." Marcus raised his hand, and the air around us shimmered. Veil of shadows. Old magic. We're invisible, until I choose otherwise. We walked right up to the main gate. Guards stood just feet away, oblivious. Marcus studied the walls, the gate mechanism, the magical wards carved into the stone. "Impressive defenses," he murmured. "Your ancestors knew their craft. These wards could stop an army. But not you, but not me." He touched the stone, and I felt something pulse through the ground. The wards flickered, dimmed, died. "Shall we?" The gates opened at his gesture, smooth and silent. We walked into Carnathia like we owned it. The streets were empty this early. Just a few merchants setting up for morning markets. Some guards changing shifts. None of them saw us. Marcus led me through streets I'd known since childhood, but his path was different. He took alleys and side passages I'd never noticed, moving with absolute certainty. "You've been here before," I realized. 17 times. First visit was 10 years ago. I've mapped every street, every building, every patrol route. He smiled grimly. "Your father's security is thorough, but predictable." We emerged in the square before the palace. Home. I'd grown up behind those walls, played in those gardens, learned statecraft in those halls. Now I was approaching it alongside a force of nature bent on destroying everything my father had built. "Last chance," Marcus said again. "You can still walk away. Tell them I kidnapped you, forced you to guide me here. They'll believe it. You'll be safe." I thought about the assassins sent to kill me. About my father's willingness to sacrifice his own daughter for tactical advantage. About the 200 warriors who died trying to murder the man I'd married. "I'm not leaving you," I said. He kissed me then, fierce and desperate and grateful. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing with something that might have been love or might have been war. "Then stay behind me," he said. "And remember, whatever you see, I'm doing this, because there's no other way." The veil of shadows dropped. Alarms screamed. Guards poured from every entrance. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Mages appeared on the palace walls, their hands already glowing with spellwork. "Marcus." My father's voice boomed across the square, magically amplified. He stood on the main balcony, resplendent in royal armor. "You dare attack the heart of the Empire?" "I dare," Marcus called back. "You sent assassins for your own daughter. You declared war. Now face the consequences. You're one man who's been waiting 20 years for this moment." Marcus drew the midnight sword. One man who remembers Thornwood. One man who will not rest until the empire that murdered his family falls. He raised his free hand, made a complex gesture. The ground beneath the palace shuddered. Stone cracked. Foundations groaned. "What are you doing?" I gasped. "What I should have done 20 years ago," Marcus said. "Ending this war, the only way your people understand." With overwhelming force, the palace began to sink. not collapsing, but descending into the earth as if the ground itself was swallowing it. Guards stumbled and fell. Mages scrambled to maintain their footing. My father's face went pale with rage and fear. "Impossible!" he shouted. "No single mage has that kind of power." "I'm not a mage," Marcus replied calmly. "I'm a curse-given form. I'm what happens when you destroy something that refuses to die." The spell he'd woven wasn't destruction, I realized. It was precision. The palace sank, but it didn't crumble. Civilians who'd been inside came streaming out. Terrified, but unhurt. He was making a statement, not a massacre. "Your defenses were built to stop armies," Marcus continued, his voice carrying across the panicking square. "Walls to hold back sieges. Wards to deflect battle magic. But I'm not an army. I'm a scalpel. Not a hammer. And I've studied your empire for 2 decades. Soldiers charged." Marcus didn't move, just gestured with 2 fingers. The soldiers froze mid-stride, held by invisible force. Not dead, just immobilized. "I've disabled every ward in this city," he announced. "Collapsed every magical defense. Your fortress is now just a building full of frightened people. And that's exactly how Thornwood felt when your soldiers came." My father descended from the balcony, his personal guard surrounding him. 20 elite warriors, the finest the Empire had produced. They'd trained since childhood, in combat arts. Each one could take down a dozen regular soldiers. Marcus cut through them in 30 seconds. Not killed. Disarmed. Disabled. He broke their weapons, shattered their armor, left them groaning on the ground, nursing broken bones but alive. Mercy he hadn't shown the assassination squad. "You're pulling your punches," my father said, recognition dawning in his eyes. "Why?" "Because my wife asked me not to burn the city," Marcus said simply. "Because I'm trying to remember I used to be better than this." He pointed the midnight sword at my father's chest. "Get on your knees. I am the Emperor of—" Marcus flicked his wrist. My father's legs buckled, forced down by invisible weight. The Emperor of the Krivari Empire knelt in the dirt before a human he'd tried to have killed. "Do you know what I could do right now?" Marcus asked, conversationally. "I could level this entire city. Every building, every wall, every life. I have the power. I have the justification. Your people started this war. Your soldiers murdered my family. I would be well within my rights to return the favor 1,000-fold." The square had filled with people. Citizens who'd heard the commotion. Soldiers who'd come running. Officials who'd emerged from their homes. All of them watched, frozen, as the untouchable emperor knelt before a single human. "But I'm not going to do that," Marcus continued. "Do you know why? Not because I'm merciful. Not because I've forgiven your empire for what it did. I'm not going to destroy Carnithia because the woman I love is standing right here, and she deserves to have something left of her world." He turned slightly, addressing the crowd. 20 years ago, the Krivari Empire crossed the Ansel River and burned a human village called Thornwood. 317 people died that night. Men, women, children. Slaughtered for the crime of living on land your emperor wanted. I was one of those villagers. I should have died. Instead, I became this. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some looked skeptical. Others looked horrified. "I spent 2 decades destroying your military infrastructure," Marcus said. 47 outposts. 3 supply lines. Hundreds of officers. Thousands of soldiers. Did any of you wonder why the eastern expansion stalled? Why the northern fortresses went silent? That was me. One man. Methodically dismantling an empire. He released my father, who rose slowly, rubbing his legs. "You're trying to frighten us," my father said. But his voice shook. "I'm trying to end a war," Marcus corrected. "Here's what's going to happen. The Krivari Empire will withdraw from all disputed territories. You'll release the human prisoners in your dungeons. You'll pay reparations to the families of those killed at Thornwood and in every battle since. You'll sign a treaty guaranteeing peace for the next 100 years. And if we refuse? Marcus's smile was terrible. Then I stop holding back. I stop letting your soldiers live. I stop caring about collateral damage. I burn this empire to ash and salt the earth so nothing grows for 1,000 years. You're bluffing. One man can't. Father. I stepped forward, my voice cutting through his denial. He killed 200 of your best warriors in 10 minutes. He walked through your defenses like they didn't exist. He brought the palace down with a gesture. What part of this looks like a bluff? My father stared at me. You're defending him? He's a monster. He's a man you created, I shot back. You ordered Thornwood burned. You started this. He's just finishing it. Traitor. My father hissed. Realist, I corrected. You can't win this, father. You never could. The only reason Carnithia still stands is because Marcus is trying to be better than the empire that destroyed his life. Don't test his patience. Marcus raised his hand, and every weapon in the square rose into the air. Swords, spears, bows, daggers. Hundreds of weapons floating, held by nothing but his will. He closed his fist, and they all shattered simultaneously. Metal rained down in harmless fragments. This is the only demonstration I'm going to give, Marcus said. Accept my terms, or learn exactly how much damage one very angry, very powerful, very patient man can do to an empire. Your choice, Emperor. My father looked around. At his immobilized guards, at his shattered weapons, at his sunken palace, at the crowd of citizens who just watched their emperor brought to his knees. You'll destroy us anyway, he said quietly. The moment we show weakness, you'll strike. No. Marcus's voice softened slightly. I want peace. I've wanted it for 20 years. But I want real peace. Not appeasement. I want a treaty with teeth. I want guarantees. Most of all, I want to stop being this. He gestured to himself, to the devastation around us. I want to go home with my wife, and remember what it feels like to be human. But I will only get that if your empire stops forcing my hand. Silence stretched across the square. Then my father, the emperor of the Kravari Empire, the man who'd ruled with absolute authority for 30 years, bowed his head. What are your terms? He asked. The treaty negotiations took place in a hastily erected tent in the palace square. The palace itself was still slowly rising back to its original position, Marcus carefully reversing his spell to prove he could build as well as destroy. My father sat across from Marcus, flanked by his advisors. I stood beside my husband, caught between two worlds. The Kravari delegation looked at me, with expressions ranging from pity to contempt. I'd chosen sides, and they weren't mine anymore. The territorial withdrawals are non-negotiable, Marcus said, spreading a map across the table. Every inch of land taken in the last 25 years gets returned. That includes the Ansel River Valley, the Thornwood region, and the northern plateaus. That's a quarter of our empire, protested Lord Vex, my father's chief strategist. That's land you stole through conquest and murder, Marcus replied. You're lucky I'm only demanding the return of contested territory. I could ask for much more. The reparations are impossible, said Lady Thorne, the treasurer. The amount you're demanding would bankrupt the empire. Then you'll have to adjust your economy. Spend less on military expansion, more on paying your debts. Marcus leaned back. The families of Thornwood deserve compensation. So do the thousands of humans your empire has displaced or killed in its expansion. My father slammed his hand on the table. You're dismantling everything we've built. You built it on graves, Marcus said softly. Did you think there would be no price? Father, I spoke for the first time since negotiations began. He's being merciful. If Marcus wanted, he could take everything. He could reduce Carnithia to rubble. He could hunt down every member of the royal family. He's offering you a way to end this with your empire intact. Some empire, my father muttered. Forced to face consequences, I corrected. There's a difference. The negotiations dragged on for hours. Marcus remained calm, patient, immovable. Every demand was carefully calculated, backed by the implicit threat of what he could do if they refused. The Crevery delegation argued, protested, tried to negotiate smaller concessions. Marcus gave ground on minor points, but held firm on the core demands. As the sun climbed higher, a commotion arose outside the tent, shouting, "The clash of metal." Marcus's head snapped up, his eyes distant. "Your brother," he said to me. "Prince Kale just arrived with the Eastern Army. 5,000 soldiers. He's demanding my head." My father's face went carefully neutral. Too neutral. "You knew he was coming," I said. This was a delay tactic. Keep Marcus talking while the real army arrived. "I am an emperor," my father said. "I will not be dictated to by a single human, no matter how powerful." Marcus stood slowly. "You just made a critical error. 5,000 soldiers," my father said. "Even you can't." "I can." Marcus's voice had gone cold. "I've been restraining myself because of Alira, because I promised I'd try to find a peaceful solution. But you just sent an army commanded by her brother to kill me. You put her family in my crosshairs." I grabbed his arm. "Marcus, please. Kale doesn't know what he's walking into. Then I'll educate him." He pulled away, striding out of the tent. The square had filled with soldiers. My brother rode at their head, his armor gleaming, his sword drawn. He was younger than me by 2 years, brave and impulsive and fiercely loyal to the Empire. He saw Marcus emerge and raised his blade. "Monster!" Kale shouted. "You've terrorized our people for the last time." "Kale, stop!" I ran after Marcus. "I'm not afraid of him, sister. I'm not afraid of any human," Kale signaled, and archers knocked arrows. "You should have stayed loyal. Now, you'll watch your husband die." Marcus sighed. "I really didn't want to do this." He moved. Faster than before. Faster than I'd ever seen him move. He was a blur, a streak of motion that cut through the army like a knife through water. Soldiers fell. Not dead, but disabled. Broken bones, shattered weapons, crushed armor. He was everywhere at once. Impossible to track. Impossible to counter. The archers fired. Every arrow stopped in mid-air, then fell harmlessly. The cavalry charged. Their horses froze, held by invisible barriers. Mages threw spells. Marcus caught them and redirected them, turning fire into ice, lightning into harmless light. In 5 minutes, 5,000 soldiers lay disabled in the square. Not one had died, but none could fight. And Marcus stood before my brother, the midnight sword at Kale's throat. "Give me one reason I shouldn't kill you," Marcus said. "Because he's my brother," I said, moving between them. "Because he's young and foolish and didn't know what he was facing. Because you're trying to be better than this. He came here to kill me. So did 200 others yesterday. You're making a point, Marcus. You've made it. The Empire can't touch you. They know it now. Everyone knows it. So please, don't make me watch my brother die." Marcus stared at me. Then, at Kale. Then, at the thousands of disabled soldiers filling the square. Something in his expression shifted. "Your brother lives because you asked," he said finally. "But this is the last mercy. The next army that comes for me doesn't walk away." He sheathed the midnight sword and turned back to the tent. "We're finishing those negotiations now. And this time, there will be no interruptions." My father emerged, staring at the devastation. 5,000 of his best soldiers, defeated in minutes. His son, saved only by his daughter's plea. The last of his resistance crumbled. "What do you want?" he asked tiredly. "Peace," Marcus said. "Real peace. The kind that lasts because both sides honor it, not because one side is too afraid to break it." He looked at me. "The kind of peace that lets me go home with my wife and never have to be this monster again." We returned to the tent. This time, the negotiations went quickly. My father agreed to everything. The territorial returns, the reparations, the prisoner releases, a treaty that would bind the empire for a century. As the sun set, both sides signed the document. Marcus's signature was steady. My father's hand shook. "It's done," Marcus said. "The war ends here. Until you decide to break the treaty," Lord Vex muttered. Marcus turned to him. "I won't break it. I don't want this power. I don't want to be what 20 years of grief and magic made me. I want to be the man I was before Thornwood burned. The treaty is as much for me as for you. It's permission to stop being a weapon." He took my hand. "We're leaving. The treaty will be enforced by neutral observers from the Human Council. If either side violates the terms, I'll know. And if I have to come back, it won't be to negotiate." We walked through the square, past the thousands of soldiers still struggling to recover, past my brother, who watched us with confusion and anger, past the shattered weapons and broken pride of an empire that had learned it wasn't invincible. At the city gates, my father called out, "Elira!" I turned. "Are you ever coming home?" he asked. I looked at Marcus, then back at my father. We left Carnithia as the stars emerged. Behind us, the Empire began the slow process of honoring a treaty it had no choice but to accept. Ahead, somewhere in the human lands, was a small house by a river, where maybe, finally, the war could end. We traveled through the night, Marcus slower now, his power banked but not gone. I could feel it around him like heat shimmer. Always there, always ready. "Are you all right?" I asked, as we crossed into human territory. "I broke 5,000 soldiers and didn't kill a single one," he said. "That's the most restraint I've shown in 20 years. I'm exhausted." "But you're all right?" He stopped walking, turned to face me. "I don't know. I spent 2 decades as a weapon. Being human again? It's harder than you'd think." "We have time," I said. "The treaty holds. The war is over. You can learn to be human again." "Can I?" His voice cracked slightly. "I've done terrible things, Elira. Killed so many. Became something monstrous. You saw what I am. I saw what you had to be. What the war made you. But I also saw you show mercy when you didn't have to. I saw you spare KL. I saw you disable rather than destroy. The monster wouldn't have done that." We continued walking. Dawn broke over the human lands, golden and peaceful. The Ansel River ran beside us. The same river that bordered Thornwood. Marcus stared at it for a long time. "I should go back there," he said quietly. "To Thornwood. Pay my respects. Say goodbye. I'll come with you." "You don't have to." "I want to." I squeezed his hand. "We're married, remember? Where you go, I go." Thornwood was a day's walk upstream. When we arrived, I understood why Marcus had fought so hard. It wasn't just a village. It had been a community. You could still see the foundations of houses, the remnants of a school, a small temple. And in the center, a monument. New wood, freshly carved. Someone had been maintaining it. "The survivors," Marcus explained. "There were 17. They escaped into the forest before the main attack. They meet here every year, to remember." He knelt before the monument, tracing names carved into the wood. Sarah, Elena, his family. I knelt beside him, reading the names of people I'd never met, killed by an empire I'd been born into. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. You're not responsible for your father's choices, Marcus said, any more than my daughter was responsible for mine. What do you mean? He was quiet for a moment. Sarah died because of me. Not directly, but I was a resistance fighter even then. I'd sabotaged Krivari supply lines, helped human guerrillas, made myself a target. Your father sent the attack because he knew I lived in Thornwood. He was trying to eliminate a threat. Sarah died because I was too stubborn to stop fighting, too angry to think about consequences. Tears ran down his face. I've spent 20 years blaming the Krivari Empire. But part of me knows I'm just as responsible. If I'd stopped, if I'd run, if I'd chosen peace over revenge even once, maybe Sarah would still be alive. I didn't know what to say. The grief in his voice was bottomless. After tonight, he continued, after everything I did in Carnithia, I can never pretend I'm innocent. I'm a killer. Elira. I'm good at it. I've practiced for 2 decades. The only difference between me and the soldiers who burned Thornwood is that I won. That's not the only difference, I said firmly. They killed without mercy. You showed restraint. They murdered children. You spared everyone you could. You're not the same. I could be. That's what terrifies me. He looked at me. His eyes haunted. You're the only thing stopping me from becoming exactly what I hate. If something happened to you, I don't know what I'd do. Then it's good that I'm not going anywhere, I said. We stayed at the monument until noon. Marcus, saying goodbye to ghosts. I couldn't see. When we finally rose to leave, he seemed lighter somehow. Not healed, but accepting. Where now? I asked. Home. Our home. The house by the river. He smiled slightly. It's probably destroyed after yesterday's battle. But we can rebuild. We returned to find the house still standing, mostly. The walls were intact, though there were arrow holes and scorch marks. The roof needed work. The floor was stained with blood that would need to be scrubbed. It's perfect, I said, and Marcus laughed for the first time since the battle. We spent the next week rebuilding. Marcus used his power sparingly, mostly for heavy lifting or precise repairs. The rest we did by hand. It felt right. Rebuilding something together, instead of destroying. Messengers came from both human and Krivari territories. The treaty was holding. The withdrawals had begun. Reparation payments were being organized. The war was truly over. On the 8th day, a visitor arrived. An old woman, human, with the look of someone who'd survived hard years. Marcus, she said. Grandmother? He whispered. She was one of the Thornwood survivors. She'd thought he was dead. He'd thought she was dead. They held each other, and wept. And I understood that some wounds could heal, after all. More survivors found us over the following weeks. The 17 who'd escaped had scattered. But word spread that Marcus was alive. That the war was over. That there was peace. They came to see the man who'd avenged Thornwood, who'd brought an empire to its knees. They also came to meet me, the Krivari princess who'd chosen a human over her empire. Some were wary. Some were angry. But most were simply curious about the woman who'd convinced a weapon to be a man again. Slowly, carefully, a new community began to form. Humans and Krivari, living together near the Ansel River. Not many at first. Just the brave or desperate or hopeful. But it grew. My father sent a letter, months after the treaty was signed. It was short. You were right. The empire needed to change. I'm trying to be better. It's hard to teach an old emperor new ways. But I'm trying. Kale asks about you. He wants to understand why you chose Marcus. Perhaps someday he'll visit, and you can explain. Until then, know that despite everything, you are still my daughter. Marcus read it over my shoulder. Will you write back? Yes, I said. Family is complicated, but it's still family. That night, we sat by the river, watching the sunset paint the water gold. Marcus's power was still there. I could feel it. But it was quieter now. A banked fire, instead of an inferno. Do you think we can really do this? I asked. Build a life? Have peace? I don't know, he admitted. The treaty is just paper. Real peace takes work. Every day, choosing reconciliation over revenge. Choosing to build instead of destroy. It'll be hard, but possible? With you? Possible. He pulled me close. You saved me, Alira. Not from the Creevery. From myself. From becoming so consumed by grief and rage that I forgot why I was fighting. You reminded me that life is supposed to be about more than vengeance. I married you for peace, I said. I didn't expect to fall in love. Neither did I. He kissed my forehead. But here we are. A weapon learning to be a man, and a princess learning to be herself. Building something new. From the ashes of war. The sun dipped below the horizon. In the distance, I could see lights from the growing settlement. Humans and Crevari. Living side by side. It wasn't perfect. There were still arguments, still mistrust, still pain from decades of conflict. But it was a start. Do you regret it? Marcus asked suddenly. Giving up your title? Your family? Your empire? I thought about the palace. The power. The life I'd left behind. Then, I looked at the man beside me. This complex, damaged, powerful, gentle person who'd been shaped by tragedy into something both terrible and extraordinary. I don't regret a thing, I said. I found something better than empire. I found home. He smiled. And in that smile, I saw the man he used to be, and the man he was becoming. The war was over. The weapon could rest. And maybe, given time and love and patience, we could build a peace that lasted. The river flowed past, carrying away the blood and pain of 20 years. Above us, stars emerged one by one, indifferent to the struggles of empires and nations. And in that small house by the water, a former princess and a former weapon held each other and dared to believe that tomorrow might be better than yesterday. The future was uncertain. The scars ran deep. But for the first time, in 2 decades, Marcus closed his eyes, without dreaming of fire and death. And that, perhaps, was victory enough.